on. Mr. Matty Moses here. Brought Justin Watry with me. We're going to do his 20 bold predictions for 2019. He's got 20 of them.
Absolutely. We're just going to work out the kinks here before we get started, so just give us a little bit of time here.
Looks like we've got someone in chat.
Somebody in chat. Could you send out a link maybe? Somehow on Twitter or something?
Hey, how's it going? How's the volume on this? Can you hear us okay? Or hey, we got a couple people in here. All right, how's my buddy? Audio's good, thank you. And this is my buddy Justin.
Check. How do I sound?
Let's see, is Justin coming in okay?
I'm always coming okay.
Giggity. Oh boy.
Keep
good.
it PG.
Okay, thank you. Cool.
All right.
Cool. So, Justin, this is something that you actually messaged me about just a little bit ago, and we threw this together. Wanted to get these ideas off your chest. You do have an article.
Yes, I do.
With similar ideas. Want to just give us an idea where people can go see that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the website is 411mania.com, and it's pretty easy to find me also under my Twitter name. It's in the chat room right now if you need the link. And before we get started real quick, is there any way you could send this on Twitter?
Oh, tweet it out. Yeah, we're going live. Yeah.
Just to get that going a little bit. But I do want to say something about 411 Mania real quick. The man behind the scenes, Larry, a lot of people know him. He just had major surgery. And in 2013, actually, I left the website for a while. Still kind of kept writing and doing my own thing. But about 6 months later, I wanted to come back. And he didn't have to let me back. He didn't have to do that for me, but he did. So I just wanted to say get well. I know he had some major surgery, and he's always been cool with me. So wishing him nothing but the best. And we're going to send out the link real quick here on Twitter just to kind of let everyone know what's going on. And then we're going to kind of dive in.
All right, here we go.
Right.
Appreciate the thumbs up. Thank you for popping in, guys. I know this isn't my usual content, mostly conspiracy stuff and so on, but this is a friend of mine. We have a video on here of us doing our NRW backyard wrestling days, so I just wanted to keep that going with them. Oh, here we go.
All right, we're sending a different link.
Yeah, we gotta get out there, and then we'll get right. We'll get right into it.
You can tell we're pros.
Yeah. Well, okay, you can lead into it, Justin, while I prop this up. One of your first predictions is about CM Punk returning to wrestling in some form.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so here's the deal, folks. CM Punk. I'm sure all of you have heard the name, and if you don't, you can do a quick Google search on that. But CM Punk left 5 years ago, January 2014. That was the date.
So, okay, now I need to chime in right away because when I look it up online, it says June of 2014, I believe. I mean, they're saying it's been 4 years, but as I pull up the article here,
actually, it was January.
Hashtag actually.
It was January 2014. The confusion probably comes in the fact that he walked out / left / whatever you want to call it the night after the Royal Rumble in 2014. And I call it quitting. He doesn't think so. But either way, he got his stuff and left. Went home for a few months. And June is actually when the termination papers came. And you could argue whether it was intentional or not. But it happened to be on his wedding day. So that was a nice little thank you partying gift for him. Needless to say, there's been some bad blood between the two sides. And he went to the UFC for a while. He's done some comic book stuff. He went and hosted a few reality shows, which is something he vowed to never do and made fun of. Well, that's what he's doing now. So I think, wrestling's where it's at for him.
Thanks for I'll share the link via Instagram, not to cut in here. Sorry. Thanks for love, guys. Sharing that on Instagram and liking the songs. Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Yeah. So I think it's I don't know what he'll be doing exactly. I don't want to necessarily say it's WWE, but he's made his life and his living and everything's been around wrestling. And I think he called it like a stopgap, or he called it something where in his life that's not going to define him. Well, unfortunately, I hate to break it to him, but that is going to define him. Wrestling is what CM Punk is known for, right or wrong. And it's been going on 5 years. So little bold prediction. I do think he's coming back.
Okay, that's a good one. Seeing him coming back. So the second one is about you have Braun Strowman going to SmackDown Live. You got a story behind that, or?
Story. I got stories for days. The story about it is last year I predicted Braun Strowman would go to SmackDown Live, and it's funny because recently my girlfriend, who Holly, I'll probably mention her a few times, but Holly, she kind of looked at me and she kind of was like, who's a big guy on SmackDown? Who's a big giant? Because she was thinking that Lars Sullivan is going to go there, which we'll talk about him later on. But he, I kind of paused and I couldn't name anyone big. I said that there's more of the athletic guys on SmackDown Live, but Raw kind of has the big boys. And Braun Strowman did not go there last year, and I thought he would. And in hindsight, maybe he should have, because he ended up not getting the title run that he probably should have deserved at that point. But I'm going to go for it again this year and say with the company SmackDown Live is moving to Fox in October 2019. They just signed a $1 billion TV deal for there. And I think Braun would be one of those perfect guys to have on, just for his look, size, and obviously with his age, it's kind of now or never for him. So you got to do something with him.
That's a great point. Good way to utilize him. Bring that over to the other.
I think
brand.
so, especially because there's talk of a lot of crossover with sports, because Fox is going to have college football. They're going to have the World Series. They already have the NFL. And they're going to have, I think it's sports on 4 or 5 times a week. I think it's 4 or 5 nights a week come October. And that's including SmackDown Live on Friday nights. And I just think Braun would be kind of one of those perfect guys to have in front of the camera to promote it.
Okay. So one of the comments here, they're talking about the XFL coming back. Are you cool with jumping around on your bold predictions? We'll touch on that while they're bringing it up.
Yeah, you can cross out each one while we do it.
Okay. So one here too, you have XFL goes on as planned. Would you like to elaborate with that?
Yeah, there's another football league starting up, and there's been talk that, Vince McMahon is going to kind of ditch his XFL plans, but I don't see there's any way of doing that, considering he's already started up his own little company outside of WWE. He's filed trademarks. He's cashed out hundreds of millions of dollars of the stock. And, they just announced the team locations and the teams and all that fun stuff in the cities and stadiums and deals for, I think it's 3 years. So there's no way he's going to bail out now. He's definitely going for it. Nice comment there. And the launch of the league is still 12 months away. I think it's the week of or the week after next year's Super Bowl. And we all know about how the first XFL went, but this time he's been planning it 2 years in advance and getting investors and hiring the right kind of people behind the scenes. Whereas the first time he pretty much just said, we're going to do it. And then a few months later, just kind of threw it out there. And it's just not going to work regardless.
Well, and to be fair too, a couple talented players came out of the XFL that first round, right? He Hate Me. Who was that?
Oh, Tommy Maddox also.
Yeah, sure. So
Steelers.
Yeah. So there's some, there's quality in that, group of players, right? It's not that they can't play, but
yeah, it was the whole business plan behind it. I think them and NBC ended up losing something like $40 million each or something, which everyone likes to laugh at and mock and stuff. But WWE that year made, I think it was double that in profits. So what did he really lose?
Yeah, that's true.
So it was nothing to him.
I could see that. Okay, that's a good one. So you have here that a top star is going to go to SmackDown Live, and we actually just talked about Braun Strowman. So you must have someone else in mind.
I do. I have a few people in mind, and this goes back to the fact that they're going to Fox, and it's more sports oriented. And if Roman Reigns is around, that'd be a perfect name. There's talk of Daniel Cormier, who's right now the top name in UFC. He could get involved. Obviously, there's always Brock Lesnar with his background. And there's Ronda Rousey, which doesn't really need much of an explanation there. For her to to go over to SmackDown, and the problem with all those names is they're all on Raw. And SmackDown Live has the reputation kind of always of being not second rate, but if there's a big name, they're probably either going to be on Raw or they should be on Raw. So I think the Fox deal clearly changes that, and the tides are going to turn. And Braun and something else and someone else is, I think SmackDown's going to get loaded up, whether it's an Edge returning or not to wrestle. He has a bad neck and stuff, but they're going to load it up big time.
Rob Rich is commenting that he heard Lesnar is going back for some fights in the UFC. Have you heard anything about that, Justin? You have a comment?
Yeah, that's the whole Daniel Cormier thing. They already had a little quote-unquote confrontation inside the octagon, and I think he's going to fight there, but I also think it's going to cross over the other way as well. So it could go both ways. Okay.
Speaking of people returning or who's going to switch brands, but you have here that you think The Rock is going to return to the WWE.
Yes, I do. I don't think.
Are we talking like WrestleMania, or what are you thinking?
There's always
going to be like a dark match, or
no? There's no way to do a dark match. I think he's. For those that don't know, dark match is not televised. If Rock's going to be around, it's clearly going to be televised, and it's going to be hyped up, and it's going to be front and center in the camera.
Are they going to roll it up with like The Rock being in a WWE movie? Use some kind of hype up like that. He's been doing a lot of movies lately, bigger budgets.
Well, he gets like 15 to 20 million a movie, so I'm not sure he's gonna do that. But I think he is producing one right now with the life story of Paige. If you don't know her, she's a women's wrestler who had to retire, unfortunately, due to her neck at a young age. She's. I
remember seeing the trailers for that movie. Not to cut you off, I remember seeing the trailer for that movie. It's pretty entertaining, right? They stop The Rock and he give him like a whole breakdown of what you need to do to make it, and he gives one of the
it looks all right.
Rock. Yeah.
I don't really see much Rock movies or even WWE movies at all. I think I've only seen one or two in the past 10, 15 years of them doing movies. But
Oculus, that was a good one. I'll recommend that right now.
All right, Oculus.
We aren't being paid for this, right?
No,
we're not shilling for the WWE, but
no, we would never.
I do recommend that movie as a normal human being.
So I think Rock will return, and if you remember, Lay at the SmackDown was his show in 1999.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna need a big splash come October to debut on Fox, who of course would you want? You're gonna want The Rock front and center, whether it's part time or even just a few quick appearances.
Yeah, just to
it's gonna bring all the attention for the debut on Fox.
That's a good one. Now, this next one's probably going to come across a little bit harsh, but we have that you're going to continue to not care about Ring of Honor or is it New Japan Professional Wrestling?
Oh, yes.
Is it New Japan?
Yes, it is. The deal is there's only so many hours in a day, and for New Japan Pro Wrestling, I think it's awesome that they're expanding in the United States. If you don't know, they're actually really big over in Japan, and their money and revenue and everything's been going up. So I think it's cool that they're coming over to the United States. But as much as I kind of always like to check them out and give them a shot, it just it doesn't hold my attention. And it's the same with Ring of Honor, which
so I don't mean to interrupt you, because I keep doing that during this but this presentation. So I guess I'm subconsciously doing it on purpose. But I like what Rob Rich is saying about those guys being crazy. Used to watch a lot of it himself. But what do you feel like it's too staged? Do you feel like the moves are I see clips online. It's in my wheelhouse. I'm aware of it. Is any of it too over the top or staged or the moves? Or is it? I'm not trying to. I mean, I know in the nicest way. Yeah, but
I know what you mean. I think you could argue it's that, but it's like the Japanese, they call it the strong style. Okay. And actually, just at their latest big event, I'm not going to use their names because I'm probably going to pronounce them wrong. But one of the dude's moves is basically he just runs up and kicks the dude in the back of the head.
Okay.
And he ended up getting completely knocked out cold, and then the guy lifted him up for his finisher, basically still unconscious, he's dead weight, and then, pinned him 1, 2, 3 as he continued to lay there unconscious. And it's called strong style, but clearly the guy ended up getting a concussion. He was knocked out, and now he's going to be out for a while.
Okay.
So I know they don't like to hear to tone it down a little bit, but, Kota Ibushi and a few other guys that I could name probably need to tone it down a little bit because, you know, as great as that all looks and sounds and stuff, there is a limit to it. And then when they're 30, 40, 50, they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have been doing that to our bodies.
And then has Chris Jericho done some work over there in New Jersey? Because I
yes, he has.
Follow him on Twitter, and
he's done a few, but we'll get to Jericho in a little bit with something else coming up. But he's basically been a free agent, and he's been touring with Fozzy, and he's been doing basically his own thing, not really under a contract to anybody.
Okay, see, that makes a lot more sense.
So he'll do one thing on there, and then go there, and then go there, and then, you know, maybe quick do some with WWE, and he's not really bound to anything.
I get it.
It's kind of cool, but yes, he has.
And then he has a cruise where he
did a cruise last year, and he's doing another one this year. Basically, it was like an event, you know, except it was on water.
Sure.
And, you know, apparently it did well. I don't know if it actually did, but he liked to pump it up and say it was amazing. So I'm sure it was fine.
That's the job. That's his job. So this one is about the All Elite Wrestling. It's going to be brand new, that it's going to take off, or it's going to come in strong. And you were telling me earlier that it's owned by the Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars' son owns this.
This is where
All Elite Wrestling.
This is where the big news was Tuesday. So SmackDown was held in Jacksonville on Tuesday, and AEW, All Elite Wrestling, they announced that they had a rally coming up on Tuesday.
Okay.
And of all the locations to pick, they picked right down the block from Jacksonville. And it was basically, you know, it was a shot. It was at WWE. It was, hey, everyone that's coming in to go to the arena for the show, come look at us. We have a little rally. And, you know, they announced a bunch of signings. They announced their plans for a show in Las Vegas in May. The billionaire owner was there. And, you know, it was their little, not coming out party, but it was something cool that they were doing. And at the end, they were kind of wrapping it up and saying thanks and, you know, buy your AEW shirts and do this and that. And then Chris Jericho came out.
Okay.
And right now
I'll just drop a link to that below because it was a brand new thing for me to hear.
It was the big surprise at the end. And then sure enough, Jericho has signed a 3-year deal with AEW. So probably this is going to be their quote unquote big name. So my bold prediction is that I think it's the real deal. I think it's going to take off. I believe that Chris Jericho, and I think the company who Cody Rhodes is kind of running it too. And I think they're going to announce a big TV deal. I don't know if it's with TNT, TBS, you know, WGN is also rumored, but I think Jericho is going to get him that deal as the quote unquote star, and then he can be the face. And, you know, they're not going to be a $6 billion company like WWE or anything like that.
Okay.
But it's going to be an actual competition. They're actually got some money to throw around, so they can sign guys. They can offer, you know, 6 figures, if not more.
So Vince is finally going to have some competition again.
So it's going to kind of go back to the late 90s where, yes, there's going to be some money being thrown around, especially if they are on Turner, which would be, you know, the ultimate, you know, irony considering Ted Turner and WCW.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting in that way. And, you know, it's basically when Jericho was giving his big surprise speech that he was signing and joining on, he ended it by saying, we're going to change the universe. And, you know, that was kind of mocking because WWE calls their fans WWE Universe. So that was another shot.
Okay.
So just a little interesting to kind of rev up the industry a little bit.
All right. So you have next up, number 7, you have that Impact Wrestling will continue to spiral.
Ah, yes. Speaking of competition,
not spiral upward, I'm guessing.
Spiral down the toilet.
Okay.
Speaking of competition, Impact, also known as TNA years ago, was the competition. 2 million viewers on Spike TV about 10 years ago, and they had, you know, quite the roster. And then a few boneheaded decisions, whole bunch of bad signings, just bad all around. And well, here, let me ask you quick. Do you know what Destination America is?
No, I'm not even going to pretend.
Do you know what pop is?
No. Soda pop?
No.
Like if you're from Chicago, you drink soda, you drink pop?
No, we call it soda here in Wisconsin.
My bad. Okay, my bad.
Do you know what Pursuit is?
Word or definition? I'm not sure.
It's a TV channel.
Okay.
Okay,
says it all right
so
there. Okay,
that
okay.
says it all. TNA went from 2 million viewers on Spike TV primetime to something called Destination America to something called Pop TV to now they are airing on Pursuit at 9 o'clock. Actually, its debut episode is in a little bit at 9 o'clock. Pursuit. So that's where TNA is now. They're down to they're now Impact, which is the right call. They got rid of the TNA name.
Okay.
And it's it's not going to be another good year for them, unfortunately. They're probably going to be stuck on whatever Pursuit is. They're trying to boast that they're now on Twitch, but from my understanding, pretty much anyone can be on Twitch, and it's just it's not money. And how the heck are you going to pay talent and travel and pay the arenas and do everything else that comes with running a company?
Okay. So going on to the next one here, you have that you think Batista will return this year.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like The Rock. I think Batista's pretty much said in interviews that the only reason he would come back, because he's hit it big with he was in the James Bond. He was obviously in Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone knows about. But Dave Batista's pretty much made it known that the only reason he would come back is something with Triple H. They've been buddies forever, and they have the clear story already in place because of their past and evolution. And he made a special appearance back on SmackDown 1000 a few months ago, and it was a quote-unquote Evolution reunion. And Batista, pretty much gave thanks and talked up Triple H about how he was running everything great these days, and he's the future, and he knows what he's talking about. And then Batista said, Triple H, the man, the 15-time champ, 14-time champ, whatever it is, and he's done everything in this business. And then he paused and said, except beat me. And then the crowd kind of oohed and awed as they kind of stared at each other and had a nice face-to-face. And then they, shook hands and hugged, pretty much like, oh, all right, you got me, buddy. But then as the segment was ending, Triple H and Batista shared one last look at each other. So it was pretty much a tease that, Batista, he's in his late 40s, I think, almost 50 maybe. He, if he did come back, it'd be one last hurrah with Triple H, which they clearly planted the seeds for. And so far, there's not been a Hall of Fame headliner yet. So why not induct Batista and then have him have one last match at Mania, kind of like Goldberg did.
Okay, I like that
a few years ago. Just a little farewell tour.
I could see that happening too, as far as where they're going to, as far as the direction with the Marvel Universe and trying to wrap up the Infinity War. I don't know how big of a role Batista has in that anymore, right?
Well, it'd be easy cross promotion, like always. It's the same with the Fox thing. You're going to want sports stars. Joe Buck was already plugging SmackDown already on a football game, and Jeff Jarrett, actually, of all people, was out there. And it's just going to be funny on, Sundays or whatever day during sports, they're going to be hyping up SmackDown, which, just kind of sounds funny, but that's how it's going to be.
Well, it's neat to see it grow in that regard. Now, NXT will remain on WWE Network.
All right. So
I guess I don't know a lot.
So here's the deal with this. NXT airs on WWE Network. I think it's the best show out there. It's on every Wednesdays. You obviously have to be subscribing to the network to get it, which is $9.99 a month. And it comes with all the pay-per-views, all the past pay-per-views, all the shows, all the past shows, ECW, WCW, a million original shows, and 30, 40 years of past pay-per-views. So clearly, you get your money's worth, even in the on-demand library. But it also comes with the live monthly pay-per-views each month that are new. So would you rather pay $9.99 a month for all that, plus the pay-per-views, or spend 3 hours and spend $50 on a pay-per-view a month? So clearly you'd better off subscribe to the network. And that's where NXT is. And each year there's rumors that, they're going to move NXT to, a TV station, that somebody's going to want the show, just like Raw and SmackDown. And every year it seems like, they're going to accept the payday, but then they keep it on WWE Network, which I think is just a perfect fit. And the problem with that is USA is now going to be paying Raw $1 billion. I think it's like $1.1 billion for the next 4 or 5 years to keep Raw. And as I mentioned a few times now, Fox is going to be paying SmackDown $1 billion over the next 5 years So that's $2 billion worth of TV deals alone. That's not counting, pay-per-views, merchandise, arena, live attendance, anything else, just TV deals. So I think they're going to get another offer for NXT, and how can you not, it's not going to get $1 billion, obviously, but it's going to be tough if, say, Fox comes in and says, hey, what about FS1? What if we offer you a Wednesday night time slot for NXT? We'll give you $100 million. I think it's going to be very, very tempting, but I think at the end they are going to keep it on the network. I think it just kind of fits there, and they're already getting $2 billion. What's, another $100 million, as ridiculous as that sounds.
Yeah. And then continue with the NXT stuff that you have here. New NXT call-ups are going to be handled better than.
Yeah, I think there's some new NXT people that are ready to debut. One of them is Lacey Evans. I think she's got the character down and already she's like the quote unquote classy lady, and she's going to bring some class and all this stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. Then there's Heavy Machinery, who I think are more of like a comedy tag team, but they're two big bruising guys that always say stakes and weights.
Okay.
And I think they're going to be, I think the crowd's going to actually really love them. And there's a video on Twitter. I'm not sure if I have it still linked. I may have deleted it, but there's a recent video of them saying goodbye to NXT at their last event. And it's just kind of sad. And it just kind of showed you that the crowd really connected to them.
Okay.
So I think that will translate, and people are going to get into them and emotionally invested. That's kind of the name of the game.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
The other three, Nikki Cross, she's kind of the crazy one, whatever you want to call it. She's kind of nuts, and I think she's going to do well because she's also the same way in NXT. She kind of got the crowd behind her, and they loved her antics. I think on SmackDown, she has her running buddies, Sanity, that she would fit in perfectly with. And then the other two, I think one of them is already going to be rumored to be in a feud with John Cena actually upon debuting, which is obviously huge, which tells you that the company has a lot of stock in them, and they trust them right off the bat. But EC3 and the other guy is Lars Sullivan. So look for those two names real soon, especially because names like John Cena actually right now do not have anything lined up for WrestleMania. So, the playing field is wide open, I think.
Okay. You mentioned about the tag teams and that emotional connection that they had made with the crowd. And I'll roll that over to you mentioning that the women's tag team titles will be introduced this year. Yes.
Vince McMahon, or I guess Santa Claus, as he was on Raw.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, don't ask.
I won't.
He said it, and I believe it. It's been kind of teased for a while now. There's signs in the crowd. The women keep kind of mentioning it, but they don't have their own tag team titles, and they already have their. They already have had Money in the Bank. They've already had their own Royal Rumble. They've had their own Elimination Chamber. They've had their own pay-per-view, for crying out loud.
Okay,
but they don't have their own tag team titles, and I think 2019 that's kind of the next step of where it is. So I think it'll happen.
That's a good one. Now, an old unexpected name comes back to WWE. I'm kind of jumping around, but I really like that one. I want to hear some guesses.
I have no idea.
It's very vague.
It's very vague.
Pick three.
The extremely vague. Well, in my column, I wrote down names like Victoria.
Okay.
Who she has said said this might be her last year. I wrote down Alex Riley, who I've always liked. He was kind of the lackey for The Miz many years ago. So I thought that was kind of a name that he was also in Glow for Netflix, which was, named Show of the Year by Entertainment Weekly, and obviously pretty big. And then another name, Tyler Rex, who actually I had a little bit of contact with years ago, but he seems kind of happy, no longer in it. He seems all right.
And is he still going independently, or
no?
He's somebody stay in the business a little bit? Or?
I think everybody's always connected in a way.
Yeah,
it goes back to CM Punk.
Okay,
where he's pretty much swore off and said that he won't come back, and then you always expect at some point they do come back.
Yeah, it feels like when you see people leave, or for other companies, or I do get interested into the behind the scenes videos. I'll catch myself watching some of those documentaries, and a lot of them stay in the business in some form, just not always WWE. So
yeah, a lot of it.
But it seems like CM Punk was just pretty much done with wrestling entirely, right?
Yeah, and
About that.
I've been told, I've said this a few times on Twitter, but the famous quote from CM Punk is he would consider himself a failure at life if he ever returned. And that's obviously very strong words. That's pretty strong conviction on his part. And it would take a lot for him to go back on that, to say he's a failure at life if he ever went back. But then again, you look at it, I mean, Ultimate Warrior came back. He was in a lawsuit. Sable sued the company for $100 million. A few years later, she was back. Bret Hart, obviously, everyone knows he got screwed in 1997, and his brother Owen Hart died in a stunt. He even came back. So if all that can happen and a person comes back, I mean, people come back.
That's a really good point.
Yes.
A really good point. Now, people coming back, I'll jump back to your list here. You have the Lucha Underground wraps up.
That would kind of suck because I actually watched the first season of Lucha Underground. It's another wrestling show on the El Rey network, and I actually really liked it. It's kind of a different style. It's almost like a TV show the way it's shot, and they have a lot of good people behind the scenes that do that kind of stuff. So it really worked for them. But with each passing season, the buzz and everything kind of slowly went downhill, and it's still kind of on a downward spiral, where I'm not sure the money anymore or the cost of running it will be worth the small ratings it draws on El Rey. So I don't know if it'll come back. I'm going to say that it's done, but would it really surprise anyone if it comes back for another year or two and just kind of stays irrelevant? But, you know, I watched first season and I haven't watched since.
Okay, now I could see that. Well, that's talking about one thing ending. One of the other topics you have here is that the WWE's global expansion continues.
Yeah, it's funny. I just mentioned, that El Rey network, Lucha Underground, isn't doing so well and might be wrapping up. But then you notice All Elite Wrestling is starting up, and they have a big billionaire backing, and they have obviously big future plans for 2019. And then there's ROH that's still making money, and then you have New Japan Pro Wrestling, which, like I said, is expanding. That's getting bigger each year. Actually, ROH and New Japan Pro Wrestling just signed. They just announced a deal at Madison Square Garden, which WWE dominated for 50 years. They announced a show, and it actually sold out in like a minute or something. And this is ROH and New Japan. So this isn't WWE like WrestleMania. This is ROH and New Japan selling out Madison Square Garden in a few minutes for I think it's in a few months.
Okay.
So that tells you that, there is something going on there. And WWE is just actually announced, I wrote this column last week, but they just announced, I think it was this morning, that they just opened up a new performance center in the UK. And they already have one in Florida, obviously for US. But now that they're opening up one in UK, that's just more of the global that they're pretty much taking over. So now anyone in UK that wants to sign, well, guess where they're going to go? And then they're going to have one in Japan, and then it's just going to keep going. And then they're going to kind of plant the flagpole in each little country and then kind of continue their global domination.
Okay, that's a good one. Shout out to DMO Entertainment. Thanks for popping in, man.
Actually,
I had to put that in there. All the conversations that we've had. Now, talking about the expansion of the WWE and it just growing in its own. I have just to link that with you mentioning that you might go to WrestleMania 2020 as one of your predictions. So where do you think it's going to be that you're predicting that you'll go?
Oh, boy. I have no idea. The few names that have always been rumored are still out there. WWE, for some reason, loves going to Florida. I don't know why. I mean, I get it. It's Florida, Miami, Orlando, even Tampa Bay, Jacksonville. They were just there. They love going to Florida. But, at some point, it's kind of like, other countries, other states, other cities that are vying for it, because each year there's pretty much a bidding for it. The different mayors and everyone will kind of give their little sales pitch. And some will offer like tax breaks, or they'll pitch in for this, or they'll put them on, whatever talk show or billboards, or the stadium will basically belong to them or whatever. They'll give them little perks. And, Florida does a good job and pretty much convinces them of doing whatever they want. When they come in, they're going to take over. But the problem is, there was just, WrestleMania 24 was in Orlando. WrestleMania 28 was in Miami. And the WrestleMania I went to in 2017, my first and only WrestleMania, was back in Orlando. So now we're going to be at WrestleMania 36 in next year, 2020. And then it's going to go back to Florida again. So that'd be 4 in 12 years, something like that.
Hey, Milwaukee's got a new stadium. Put in a bid.
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people say WrestleMania 17 is the greatest WrestleMania of all time in the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, from 2001. It had the old Stone Cold heel turn against The Rock. It had TLC 2. It had Shane versus Vince.
Sure.
It had the gimmick battle royal where all the old guys kind of came out there and brawled. It had Undertaker and Triple H in a brawl. It had a million great matches, and some argue it's the greatest pay-per-view of all time. Funny part is Miller Park was opening around that time, and it actually was one of the rumored places to host that year's. But then a lot of people in Milwaukee remember the Big Blue, the crane, when it collapsed or whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. No.
Then it just so happened that Stone Cold, who had a broken neck, was coming back after a year, and it just made too much sense not to go to Texas, where he's from, and then have him win the Rumble and win the title and pretty much build everything around Stone Cold coming back.
Okay.
And it ended up being the biggest, at the time, it's been top, but biggest U.S. pay-per-view for the company ever. So, it obviously paid off and it was fine. But it's funny you mentioned Milwaukee. Back to the question, though. Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Vikings have a new stadium. That's kind of a rumored one. But it'd be a little weird, like saying, "Oh, I'm going to WrestleMania," and it's a few-hour drive.
Sure.
Not much of a trip like me flying to Orlando a few years ago.
Right.
But if it is in Minnesota, absolutely, I do plan on going. That is one of the rumored places. I don't know if I've ever been to Minnesota, maybe like the border or something, but that's a state I haven't been to. I think I've been to like 10 or 12 states or something weird like that. So I'm hoping I'm going. This year's is in New Jersey, New York. I knew from the beginning I was not going to go to that one. So they usually announce the following year's location in the beginning of this year. So we're in the beginning of this year. So kind of look for if they hype up a special announcement or some big news or something, it's probably going to be the location to next spring's WrestleMania.
Okay, that's a good one. Now, I've got to do these last couple in a specific order, so I'm going to jump right to this one about you thinking that Bray Wyatt is going to make some tweaks to his gimmick, to his character. Or I shouldn't say gimmick.
Yeah, it's I think Bray Wyatt's been out for a while, but he's on his way back. He just he's been returning to live events, and he's probably going to come back. I didn't really care for his whole thing with Matt Hardy and the whole how them I don't know, they just kept acting weird. I don't know what way to put it, and it didn't really do it for me. I didn't really care for it. Matt Hardy's out also injured, and Bray Wyatt's going to come back, and he's young enough, and he's got enough character, and he's got it in the family. So I'd like for him to come back, not necessarily ditch the entire Bray Wyatt act.
Sure.
But I think he needs something. And, people have already forgotten, but just 2 years ago, he was WWE champion, and he was walking into WrestleMania as WWE champion. You can't really ask for much more of that in this business. And now he's pretty much doing nothing. So it's hard to argue that, he's on the right path or that what's working right now is working for him when it's clearly not. And he needs to somehow get back to where he was 2 years ago, because the fireflies in the crowd I think they'll be waiting for him and ready to go.
Okay. These last two that I got to tie together is about. Oh, okay. One more. Almost missed it. Roman Reigns coming back this year. He's battling leukemia. Is that correct?
Yes, leukemia. Roman Reigns the past 5 years, he's basically, John Cena's been gone. Randy Orton's been limited. Rey Mysterio's kind of in and out. Like I said, Jericho's been gone. Basically, all the names that you knew or grew up on or, however you knew it are basically either gone or part-time. And Roman Reigns has been the one carrying the ball. He's main evented the past 4 WrestleManias. He's basically beaten every top guy you can think of. And unfortunately, he kind of shocked everybody a few months ago. He came on Raw with the Universal title. Of course, he was the champion. And he came out and said, "I'm not Roman Reigns. My name is Joe." and then kind of spoke from the heart and told everyone that he's battling leukemia. And obviously it was a sad situation, and he, had to say he's going to give up the title, and kind of walked away and left the arena.
I even saw the clips of that online myself, and it was pretty emotional too. You kind of see the crowd.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of chants against him. It seemed like at the moment, and then once he kind of broke it down, that this is some real.
Yeah, he he got the love to hate. It's the Tim Tebow effect, where people just boo him, and how can you, what's wrong with Tim Tebow?
Yeah,
he did nothing but win, and he, religious, good guy. There's all these stories about his great charity work, and then people boo him and say he sucks, and he's
wasn't he?
I don't get it.
All of his endorsement money he was given to charities too, or he had some kind of
and then he's family guy and still spends time with all them and everything, and it's I don't understand where the hate comes from. It was the Cena effect. Cena sucks, all the chants for 10 years, and now that he's gone, Cena kind of gets a little bit more respected and kind of appreciated. It's the old phrase, you don't know what you have till it's gone.
Yeah.
So suddenly Reigns came out, and people kind of realized, oh, we're booing this guy, and this whole time he's been battling this leukemia thing that he's had, and it kind of put everything into perspective, and everyone kind of shut up and realized oh, okay. And then they gave him a thank you chant, and he left, and then his two buddies from the Shield came up, and then they did their patented fist bump at the top of the ramp, and him and the other two were in tears. So it was a nice moment, but back to the prediction, it's not going to happen. I understand that, but what a comeback story. If only after a few months or whatever he's doing right now, there haven't been many updates, if suddenly he does come back and kind of reclaim his spot. So I think it'd just be a nice feel-good story.
Okay. That wasn't a downer at all. So let's talk about Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch.
Okay.
Headlining WrestleMania 35. That's your prediction.
Here we go.
Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch, WrestleMania 35. This says headlines.
Headlines.
So this is
the last match.
The last match. The lights go off. You go to bed. That's the last thing you saw.
Well, I would not be going to bed after that match. I'll tell you that much. But I'm already prepared to have this prediction wrong, actually. So here's the deal. In the prediction, Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch right now are the two hottest names, male, female. I don't care what company you're in. Everybody wants to see Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey.
Okay.
And this match was actually made back in November for the Survivor Series pay-per-view. But a week before it, Becky Lynch got a concussion, and I think they called it a broken face. Basically, her face exploded when someone punched her. And
yikes.
We were robbed of seeing Rousey versus Becky Lynch because obviously the doctors said Becky Lynch could not be cleared to compete.
Sure.
So as a replacement, we got, arguably, just as good, but Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. So we got that match completely out of the blue with a week of build, which kind of sucked, but they were in a tough spot. So they had to announce something, and it ended up being an amazing match. And I'm pretty sure I have it in my top 3, 4, 5 for matches of the year, and it ended up being amazing. And Becky Lynch then was cleared, and she came back, I think 2 weeks later, and they have, I think Becky Lynch and Charlotte have been going at it for most of the year. And now that Rousey's kind of involved, she actually then came out because Rousey was the Raw champion at the time, and Becky Lynch was the SmackDown champion.
Okay.
And Becky Lynch then was cleared to come back about a month later. And of all people, Ronda Rousey from Raw, which, if you know, is a big deal when they cross over. It doesn't happen. Ronda Rousey came out during the end of the December pay-per-view then and cost Becky Lynch her title, causing her to lose. And it was a huge deal, and obviously more seeds being planted. And for the past month, they've kind of traded shots, been trending on Twitter a million times with their little jabs back and forth. And Charlotte's been involved also. So the match we missed out in November, basically a blessing in disguise, is now basically, I think, is going to be saved for the biggest show of the year, WrestleMania in New York. And in case you didn't know, it would be the first time ever the women would main event WrestleMania.
Okay.
And this just shows how far along they came, because, the women used to get 2 minutes and used to be called divas and used to just be in pudding matches before commercials.
Oh, yeah. What were all the ones?
Braun panties, and they were nothing. And now I think in 2018, the story of the year has been the women. I think they main evented the Rumble. Ronda Rousey came in. Nia Jax started winning a lot more and getting more attention.
Sure.
Becky Lynch, I just said, and Charlotte had maybe feud of the year. And then the two champions going at it. And then it even closed the year, TLC, as the main event with Rousey, obviously, like I said, costing Becky Lynch the title. It was the story of the year from beginning to the middle to the end. Everything was about the women. So I think it's only fitting that come April in New York, New Jersey, 80,000 people at MetLife Stadium, the main event is Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. And I said I'm prepared to get this wrong because I think, based on a tease from Raw, I think Charlotte's going to get added. So it'll be a triple threat. But I would still go Rousey versus Becky Lynch just because the issue has been mainly between them back and forth, with Charlotte kind of in the middle. So if we get a triple threat, fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
But clearly it's going to be between Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. And to show how far, we've come, that's going to be the main event of the biggest show of the year. So forget Roman Reigns, forget Seth Rollins, forget Brock Lesnar, forget any legend, forget Kurt Angle, forget Triple H, forget Batista. Women are going to be main eventing that night.
Wow. What a turnaround. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now we got a great question in the chat, but here, just because this connects with your last prediction, this is the last prediction that Ronda Rousey will lose that match at WrestleMania.
Yes.
Okay.
Ronda Rousey. Everyone knows her. Everyone knows the name. Everything is Ronda Rousey. She's the Raw champ, and she has not lost. She is currently undefeated.
I didn't know that.
Bold prediction.
Okay.
There it is. 2019. She's going to lose.
I like that.
I think Becky Lynch, who now calls herself the Man, I think Becky Lynch is going to beat her, and the show's going to end with her standing tall and everyone either in shock or not knowing what to do, because it's the biggest event of the year, and Ronda Rousey is going to come in as champion and fire, and she's going to give the glare and the old stare down that she always did in UFC, and everyone knows and loves it, and then she's going to get beat. So that's going to be your moment there, on top of the fact that the women are main eventing the show.
Okay. It's a good one. Now, what we got from DMO here, do you have a favorite wrestler as of right now? Do you enjoy the whole thing?
Yeah.
The whole magic of it, or what?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite wrestler right now?
I just enjoy the shows. Obviously, I like the Roman Reigns and the John Cena acts. And I think the performer of the year is Seth Rollins.
Okay.
2018. I think AJ Styles was neck and neck, but his feuds with Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura and even Daniel Bryan, probably not as good as they could have been. So like out of a 10, I would say like 7 or 8 when they should have been a 10. Like those two in the ring,
Sure.
Nakamura and AJ Styles, that should be a 10 every single time.
Yeah.
It's like seeing a trailer or Marvel, like with Thanos. Like these movies better be 9s or 10s. Like these things better be amazing, and anything less than that is probably going to be disappointing.
Yeah.
So I would say Seth Rollins, and it's hard not to say that Ronda Rousey is the superstar of the year, male or female. Because as I noted, she's done everything from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It's been the Ronda Rousey show.
Okay. It's a really good one too. I think it makes your prediction of her losing that much more impactful.
I think so. And it adds into it that, we don't know what her future is. She's been full-time. She hasn't been part-time like people thought. She has devoted her 2018 to the company. She's not been like The Rock or Jericho or someone who kind of comes in or doesn't do the non-televised live events or doesn't travel to the small towns. She's done that. She's traveled to all the small towns. She's traveled overseas. She's traveled to the big cities. She's been on every Raw. She's been on everything, even Milwaukee last year, if you remember. She was there.
Yeah.
So she's done all of that. And, it's going to be interesting to see if she does continue, if she does keep it going. Does she have another year left in her? She hasn't necessarily acted heelish, but her in that stare is instant money as a heel. So it'll be interesting to see if she either retains or wins or loses at Mania, and then kind of, decides what she wants to do. She's talked about starting a family. I don't think she'd ever go back to UFC, but never say never in this world. You wouldn't be shocked. And I think, again, the story of the year might be Ronda Rousey.
No, it's a really good one. So from the last time that you did this with your 20 predictions, your article says that you got 18 and a half correct. Do you want to elaborate a little bit before we maybe start to wrap this up? Or
I'm good. That was last year, so I'm kind of fine with it. It's
You're
kind
over
of
it.
I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
'cause,
What ones didn't you get right? Because that's a lot to get right.
Well, it was
18 and a
basically
half,
the Braun
what'd you say?
Strowman one.
Mhm.
I thought he'd go to SmackDown, and he really shouldn't. And honestly, last year, I don't want to say it was a down year, but towards the end of the year, it did kind of get a little bit of a downturn. And whether we like it or not, the fact that the McMahons were kind of brought back to quote unquote save us or whatever, and kind of bring us back to where we should be. But I think it's fine because we're in January, and anybody that knows that knows it's now the road to WrestleMania. So we're on the right track right now. So everything is fine.
Okay. That's a good one. Any closing thoughts you want to touch on? Anything coming to mind now, just doing the live stream? Want to thank the guys, everyone that popped in here, Rob Rich.
I just want
TMO.
to,
We had a couple other people viewing too earlier on.
I just want to say thanks to everyone.
Abdel, thank you.
My columns, 411 Mania or No DQ also. So don't forget to check that out. And then if you want to plug anything real quick, that's on you.
Yeah. I don't have anything too crazy here. I'll drop a link for your article that this broadcast was based on. And yeah, there, right, Rob Rich? Yeah, we got it. We'll see how you do.
Yeah, we'll see how we do in 12 months. I'm sure I'll do amazing.
We'll check them off one by one.
Right, one by one.
And when's WrestleMania?
WrestleMania's, yep.
Okay.
It's always the beginning of April or end of March. And if you don't check out the events or the programs or anything, any time of the year, now is the time. January through April, that's the time to watch, whether you're a big fan or a small fan or don't really care. And if you're in the Wisconsin area, they're actually returning, I think it's March 16th, Saturday, at the Pfizer Forum, the new arena in Milwaukee, which I've been to like half a dozen times, I think. It's March 16th. It is not a televised event. So, it'll be it's called a live event, but it's March 16th. So if you do plan on checking it out or wanting to see it, that'd be the time to go.
Okay. There's a link to that. Keep us updated. Yeah,
Will do.
That's funny. Yeah, we'll save it. Check back. That was good. Thanks, everyone, for stopping in. I think we're just getting ready to close this one out, and hope everyone has a good night. This is kind of a new thing. I might start doing some live streams of my own.
Sweet.
For some of my thoughts on or things like that, but not to keep it too far off talking. And thanks for popping in, Justin.
Anytime. Thanks.